You wake up and your hands are stiff again. Your knees ache on the stairs. Your shoulders feel like they belong to someone older than you are. And somewhere along the way, someone gave you the explanation that ends every conversation. It's just arthritis. It's just getting older, wear and tear. So you accept it. You take something for the pain, and you wait for it to get worse, because that's what you've been told it does. But here's the part that often gets skipped. Now, let's be honest up front. Sometimes it really is arthritis. It's a real condition, and for plenty of people, that diagnosis is exactly right. I'm not going to tell you it's all in your head, or that you can swap your treatment for a handful of pills. But here's what's also true. For some people, that aching and stiffness isn't coming only from worn-down joints. It's being driven, partly or entirely, by something far more ordinary and far more fixable, a nutrient deficiency. And it can produce pain so similar to arthritis that the two are easy to confuse. By the end of this video, you'll know the deficiencies that can mimic arthritis, including one that's incredibly common, that overlaps with joint disease almost perfectly, and that hardly anyone gets tested for unless they know to ask. And I'll be clear about what the science actually supports and what it doesn't. Let's start with that one, because it's the big one, vitamin D. You probably think of it as the sunshine vitamin, something for immunity, maybe your mood. But its most important job is something else. Vitamin D is what lets your body actually use calcium. Without enough of it, the calcium you eat barely gets absorbed, and your bones can't mineralize properly. And when that goes on long enough, it produces a very specific kind of pain. Not a single hot, swollen joint, but a deep, widespread aching in the bones and muscles. The hips, the lower back, the thighs. A tenderness that's hard to point to. Muscle weakness that makes standing up from a chair feel like effort. Sound familiar? It should, because that's almost exactly what arthritis feels like from the inside, which is why it gets missed. Vitamin D deficiency is one of the most common deficiencies in the world, and it gets more common as we age. We make less of it and absorb it less efficiently. The symptoms come on so slowly and so vaguely that they're almost always blamed on age instead. And here's what should bother you. A standard checkup usually doesn't even include a vitamin D test unless you ask for it. So millions of people are walking around with a fixable deficiency, being told their joints are just wearing out. Now, vitamin D is the headliner, but it almost never works alone, because your joints, your bones, and the tissue around them are built and maintained by a whole team of nutrients. And when the supporting cast goes missing, the whole structure gets weaker. And to be clear, every nutrient in your body matters. There's no such thing as an unimportant one, but some carry more weight for your joints and bones specifically. So these aren't the only nutrients that count. They're the ones most worth knowing about for this particular kind of pain. So let's meet the team. And I'm going to group them by what they actually do, because this isn't a list of pills to swallow. It's a system. Part 1. Getting calcium to the right place. First job, making sure calcium ends up where it belongs. Here's something most people never hear. Taking calcium isn't enough. Your body has to direct it, and if it doesn't, that calcium can end up in the wrong places, like your arteries and soft tissue, instead of in your bones where you need it. Two nutrients control that traffic. The first is vitamin K2. Think of it as the traffic controller. It activates the proteins that pull calcium into your bones and keep it out of places it shouldn't be. The research here is still developing, but the mechanism is striking. Without K2, you can take all the calcium and vitamin D in the world and still misroute it. The second is magnesium. And this one's a quiet hero, because magnesium is what your body uses to activate vitamin D in the first place. Let that land. You can take vitamin D every single day, but if you're low on magnesium, your body struggles to switch it on. Magnesium also helps build the structure of bone itself, and it keeps the muscles around your joints relaxed. And that matters more than it sounds, because tight, cramping muscles around a joint can ache in a way that feels exactly like the joint is the problem, when it isn't. So already, two things you'd blame on arthritis, misrouted calcium and muscle tightness, trace back to nutrients, not damage. Part 2. Building the tissue itself. Second job, actually building the connective tissue. the cartilage, the tendons, the flexible framework inside your joints. Most of that tissue is made of collagen. And collagen isn't something you can just eat and magically deposit into your knees. Your body has to build it, and to build it, it needs specific raw materials. The first is an amino acid called glycine. Glycine is the single most abundant building block in collagen, woven through every strand. It's the literal material your cartilage and tendons are made from. And here's the catch. Diets heavy on muscle meat, but light on the connective parts, bones and broths, often fall short on it without anyone realizing. The next is copper. Copper runs the enzyme that cross-links your collagen and elastin. It's what stitches those fibers together so your tissue is strong and springy instead of loose and weak. True copper deficiency isn't common, but when it happens, connective tissue genuinely suffers. And here's the one that ties this whole section together, the one the supplement ads always forget: vitamin C. Your body cannot build collagen without it. Vitamin C is a required cofactor in the process. No vitamin C, no collagen. It's the reason sailors with scurvy fell apart, joints and all. So if you're short on glycine, copper, or vitamin C, your body can't properly build or repair the tissue inside your joints. And that shows up as stiffness and ache that, once again, looks just like arthritis. Part 3. Keeping the bone strong. Third job. Keeping the bone underneath dense and strong. One more nutrient earns a mention here: boron. It's a trace mineral that supports bone density and helps your body manage minerals like calcium and magnesium. The evidence is more modest than the others, so I won't oversell it, but it's a real player in bone metabolism, and it's one most people have never even heard of. So how do you know if your pain might actually be one of these deficiencies and not arthritis? There's no way to diagnose yourself from a video, and I won't pretend otherwise, but there are clues worth paying attention to. Deficiency pain tends to be widespread and achy rather than one hot, swollen joint. It often comes with other quiet symptoms: fatigue, muscle weakness, low mood. It builds slowly, without an injury you can point to, and it doesn't always match what your imaging shows. If any of that rings true, here's what actually makes sense to do. Get tested before you supplement, real blood work, and specifically ask for vitamin D, because it's the one most likely to be both the problem and left off the standard panel. And this next part really matters, so hear me out. Supplementing is not as harmless as it looks. More is not safer. With a lot of these, more is actively dangerous. Don't just start popping big doses of calcium or any single mineral, hoping to fix your joints faster. Megadosing calcium without the nutrients that direct it can push it into your arteries instead of your bones. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, which means your body stores it. So too much builds up and becomes toxic. And these nutrients interact, so flooding your system with one can throw off the others. So treat this responsibly. Correct an actual shortfall. Don't gamble on huge doses. The goal is getting back to enough, not as much as humanly possible. Where you can, get these from food first. And anything you do supplement, do it knowing your actual numbers. And here's a simple way to actually see where you stand before you change anything. Most people have no idea what they're actually getting from their food, so track it. There's a free app called Cronometer that, unlike calorie counters, maps your food against dozens of individual micronutrients: vitamin D, magnesium, calcium, all of it. Log your meals for a week or two and look at the summary. Most people are genuinely shocked to find they've been falling short on several of the exact nutrients we just talked about. You can't fix what you can't see. And one more piece, because nutrients are only half the story. Even with every nutrient in place, your joints need one more thing to use them: movement. And here's what surprises people. The cartilage inside your joints has no blood supply. The only way it gets fed is by being gently compressed and released. So the right kind of movement is literally how nutrients get delivered into the joint. Resting a stiff joint completely can actually starve it. I'm not talking about punishing workouts. Gentle, regular movement, walking, easy range of motion work, light loading, does more for an aching joint than rest ever will. That's a whole video on its own, and I'll cover exactly what helps another time. For now, just know this: The nutrients are the raw materials, but movement is what puts them to work. Because the real lesson here isn't take these 7 things. It's that your joint pain might not be a story about damage at all. It might be a story about a body that's quietly missing its raw materials. And that's a very different problem with a very different solution. But it's just your age should be the start of an investigation, not the whole of one. Sometimes the joint isn't the problem. Sometimes it's just the place you feel it. Take care of yourself, the whole system, not just the parts that hurt.